We have gathered here tonight to hear about the importance of the month of Kartik, and especially if we can understand the significance of Lord Krishna performing the pastime known as Damodar Leela. And then we are open to questions and answers. Is that all right? Yeah. So 5,000 years ago, the Supreme Personality of Godhead felt that it was essential for him to appear in this material world. And he gave the reasons for his appearance. He said that, hey Arjuna, because the flow of transcendental knowledge, which would happen from generation to generation, has stopped. Now, I am offering you that knowledge, and I am once again establishing the or giving the opportunity to gain transcendental knowledge, and henceforward the future generations would again receive and understand this pure and pristine knowledge. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu. So this knowledge was transmitted from one generation to another generation. Parampara praptam. The word praptam is significant because it helps us understand and see that we have opportunities. One can try to get something only when one has the opportunity to see it, observe it, and understand how to obtain it. So prapti is a Sanskrit word which basically means to possess or to get, to achieve. So achievement is only possible if there's the opportunity. So Krishna is specifically saying that opportunities were available much more easily till this present time, the time where Arjun and the others were existing. And now those opportunities are very less. Sometimes people ask that why doesn't God come now? Because we get frustrated. It's like, you get frustrated because the nearest Costco is about 10 miles away. So then you ask, why doesn't Costco come next door? Because it's our frustration. Doesn't, from Costco's perspective, there's not sufficient needs or there's not sufficient reason for Costco to come in our neighborhood. Doesn't see the potential. But we may feel, how dare Costco not be here? It is my need. So my demands are there. So just because we feel that certain circumstances or certain situations are like going out of hand, does not necessitate the Lord's appearance. He is not like the the company that comes to collect our trash. Like we accumulate trash and then we put it outside. And then once a week the truck comes and empties it. And one day when the truck doesn't come, then we get concerned. Why is the truck not there? Now what do I do? Where will the trash go? The point is, why create so much trash? No one kind of thinks about that. It's like it is my birthright to create trash, and it is my civil right to have the trash truck come and take it away. I pay my taxes. So this is a human fallacy. Human fallacy is not to see or not to be able to see that the root cause of the problem is at our doorstep. We always seek solutions to problems, thinking that seeking solutions is intelligence, whereas creating problems is not to be questioned. It is not to be addressed. Creation of problems, right? So that is human fallacy, or let us say that is the problem with the intelligence being disillusioned. Anyways, I wouldn't want to sidetrack. I get sidetracked whenever, like I go on a tangent whenever something is very logical. Unfortunately, logic is not always good for discussion. It is not something that people like to, or the general populace does not thrive on logic. It's like, okay, what should we do? Just tell us that. Don't give us logic, please. Already there's so much of stress. I have to look into my taxes, and I have to see how I can make savings and save on petrol, credit card. No more deliberations, please. So yeah, so I got sidetracked a lot. I don't have a job. I don't make money. I don't have to pay my bills, so to say. So I have fun with logical thinking. So coming back to Prapti, yeah. So because of human fallacy, sometimes the ability, the opportunity that we have to address the root cause of problems is lost. It simply is not available. And that is called as dharma glani. Further on in the Gita, Krishna explains, yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi bhavati bharata. Glani bhavati bharata. So dharma glani. What is dharma glani? People sometimes think dharma glani means adharma. And if they ask them what is adharma, adharma is a lack of dharma. Then what is dharma? Dharma is when adharma is predominating. It's like or something like that. I'm sorry. What is dharma? Dharma is when adharma, whatever. So what is dharma and what is adharma? It's very simple. If we keep it very simplistic, dharma is that which allows you to see opportunities for self-development. That is dharma. And adharma is that which stops you from a progressive way of life. Now, what are some of the adharmic principles? Tell me some of the adharmic activities, and we'll see if this logic is helpful. Anyone?
Intoxication.
Okay, my God. Like this is hardcore here. Let's take something as simple as cheat, speaking lies. All right? That is considered to be adharma, speaking lies, right? So what happens? When you speak a lie, you lose the opportunity to progress. Why? Because as soon as you speak a lie, you have to come up with other lies to cover it up. So your time gets used up in all of that. So when will you make progress? Now you speak the truth, even if it is detrimental to you, you speak the truth. At least the next moment you can think, what next? How do I progress? Makes sense? So is it necessary to kind of cloak dharma and adharma in big jackets and put their effigy somewhere? This is dharma. Dharma will come and save you. Adharma will destroy you. Is it necessary to do that? Can't we keep it simple in life? Yeah. So this kind of simplicity was lost during Arjuna's times. Therefore, Arjuna was having his Gandhiva, his arrow. He had ticked all the boxes. He had applied for the job. And then he says, and I cleared the interview. I have signed all the, what is it called as you sign all the papers before? The contract. I've signed the contract. And now I feel that I may not be able to do the job. And what is the reason I may not be able to do the job? Oh, I think I should take out time to weep over what would be the future of my family members. Who does that? Arjun did it. Yeah. So Krishna said, this is the problem. The problem is that the generational transfer of understanding of how to use opportunities, how to see opportunities has been lost. Sakale neha mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. Yoga means that which helps you join. So I'm here, my opportunity is there, and the connection is lost. Why is the connection lost? Because the Paramatma is, if we take the Krishna conscious perspective, the Paramatma is seeing that we want to forget this connection, is giving us that Jnana Apohanam. Apohanam is happening. He's giving us that facility. So Krishna comes to establish Dharma. So that happened 5,000 years ago. So that's established. Yeah. Okay. So when he comes here, he says that, all right, I am God. And although people think that God should always be working 24/7, my idea of being God is that I should be having fun. Can you imagine if you could get to become God and you are still working? Not a good proposal, right? But if you get to become God and you're having fun, oh, everyone will sign up, isn't it? So why shouldn't Krishna also think like that? Right? So he says that I like to have fun, and occasionally I work. And my occasional attempts at working preserves dharma in this entire creation. So if Krishna were to do it full time, do you know how tragic it would be for us? We would be under so much pressure because he does it so much like part time. So we have some facility to try and hide away from his gaze, to do our own things. Yeah. So he says, I want to have fun. So to have fun, he brings along his own people. He says, I cannot have fun with all these people, all of these people sitting here in Novi, in this house. I cannot have fun with them. Why? Because as soon as I want to have fun with them, they're like, how do I progress, please? What more should I do, please? And Krishna is like, have fun. They're like, I don't think so, I'm doing enough. So Krishna says, all right, you all are going to be the members of the club where I come part-time. But for my fun time, which is what I really want to do, I bring my own people. So he has Nanda Baba, Yashoda Maiya, the Gopas, the Gopis, they all also appear in this material world. This is so simple, right? Anyone would do that. If you decide to go on a retreat, let's say you want to just take vacation time, drive down to Florida, and on the way you want to visit, obviously because most of you are Krishna conscious, obviously what you want to do is visit every temple there, right? And if that doesn't happen, maybe you'll feel a little bad that I'm doing sense gratification. Yeah, that is definitely going to happen. It's a different thing that when you go to the temples, you want to have as much Mahaprasad. Yeah, but no sense gratification. So it becomes difficult to see Krishna as Mother Nature and see Krishna's beauty as nature. You see the hills and the vastness of the hills and the mountains, and you try to think, oh, if the hills and the mountains are so impassable, they are so huge and like stretching unlimitedly, how great Krishna must be, or how great his compassion must be. Compassion could be like hills. So if we are not able to do that, because that would be sense gratification, right? Enjoying the hills and the sights. You see how it is difficult to see opportunities even when we have what is actually little knowledge, but we think we have good enough knowledge, good enough of information. So anyways, so he wants to have fun with his own people. They all appear. So where does he appear? The scripture tells us that he appears in Vrindavan, Mathura Mandal, Vrindavan. So we say, all right, we accept it. Like somebody asked me, where are you going next? From my previous destination where I was, they asked me, where are you going next? So I said, yeah, I'm going to Farmington Hills and Novi. No one asked me why. Did anyone ask me why? No. But sometimes people ask, why Vrindavan? Why did he appear in Vrindavan? Well, that was his next destination. That's it. That's where he appeared. And the information, after I leave from here, this will be forever in history. It would be, this information would be available that Rohini Priyadas had visited Novi on this and this date. Those documents tell us that. Similarly, scriptures are documents that tell us that Krishna appeared along with all the cowherd boys and girls, the cowherdsmen, about 5,000 years ago in Mathura and Vrindavan. And then when he was about 3 years old, Mother Yashoda did not have an iPhone, which could imprint the date exactly and let us know that it was on this date. Maybe the Gregorian calendar also wasn't there then. So we are kind of estimating that it could be when he was about 2 to 4 years old. He was still a toddler in that sense. Balyavastha it is called as. So this is Bal Leela. The day of Diwali was approaching, Deepavali. It is the Amavasya day, the day of the new moon in the month of Kartik. Since ages, in the land of Mathura, Vrindavan and thereabouts, people celebrated the festival of Diwali where they would make nice sweets. Today we don't make nice sweets. What do we do on Diwali? Either you burst crackers or at the most you celebrate Govardhan Puja. I think it's about the same time, isn't it? So Mother Yashoda, unfortunately, she never got the opportunity to do celebrate Govardhan Puja in that sense. She could only celebrate Deepavali. We can do one better than Mother Yashoda, see? So she was wanted to celebrate Diwali, and the traditional way to celebrate Diwali is to make sweets. There are various reasons for it. Typically, yesterday I was mentioning that during this month, the month of Kartik, one is getting used to having milk products again. For 2 months, there were some restrictions on milk products, Chaturmas. So one is getting used to. So making of sweets, and because of the restrictions on milk products, the body is lacking those nutrients. So there is Sharad Purnima, sweets. There is Deepavali, sweets. After that, go and check your blood sugar level so that you can take some precautions. So 15 days, after 15 days, that is done. Her concern was that Krishna is becoming very naughty. And somehow or the other, she kind of used her own analytical power, and she thought that the reason he is naughty is because maybe he's not getting sufficient love and affection at home. Maybe Krishna has what is called as Attention, ADS. Attention. Yeah. See, Mother Yashoda knew that too. That it is possible that Krishna is kind of feeling that I am not giving him enough attention. Oh, okay. Attention deficit or deficiency syndrome, ADS. Children go through that, right? Do children go through that? Yeah. Even big children go through that. They have ADS, especially after 25 years of age. They tell the wife, you're not giving me enough attention. Or they tell the husband, I'm not getting enough attention. Devotees, I'm not getting enough attention from such and such person. So much of ADS going around. So children go through that. So that is what Mother Yashoda thought. Krishna is having some issues, and it must be because he's not getting enough affection at home. So how do I show that I actually care for Krishna? So she's a queen. You know what it means to be the queen? Do you know what it means to be the queen? It means that you have a lot of help, right? It means that you are like the team manager. What does the team manager do? Meetings, and it makes others work, or she makes others work, right? You've all worked. You have team managers, worked in a team. Doesn't the manager kind of just, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Tomorrow we are going to have a review meeting again. So the queen is like that. So she had many people, a lot of help. So somebody would take care of the kitchen needs, somebody would take care of other household needs. That day, Mother Yashoda wanted to take everything into her own hands. She wanted to work with her own hands, her own physical efforts. So she decided to make sweets with putting in her efforts and no one else's help. She would be churning butter and prepare sweets from churned butter. She would be making sweets from milk, etc., etc., etc. So Krishna kind of he acknowledged that. At one point of time, he thought that Mother Yashoda was so much involved in giving and taking care of things. What is that nice quote that people like to put up? That we are supposed to take care of and see, he knows that. We are supposed to take care of people and use things. However, in present times, we are taking care of things and using people. I've never understood why that quote is there, but it seems that people like it. It gives them some hope. Yeah. Somebody's understanding my problem. So Krishna was kind of thinking, okay, Mother Yashoda is taking care of things and neglecting people. So Krishna, rather than tell Mother Yashoda, throw this quote at her, he did something else. He threw a stone at the pot of butter. The butter pot broke. Everything spilled out. When it spilled out, when things spill, typically what do toddlers do? They want to step into it. Because they cannot, sometimes they want to lift it up, but when it is spilling and it's kind of spreading, they're like, okay, let me step on it. Maybe they're trying to stop it from whatever they're doing, but they like to step into it, right? So Krishna did that. He stepped into it. And when he stepped into it, he realized that this is not safe for me. Because it was slippery. Children understand when they're about to slip and fall. So little Krishna, he stepped out of and walked off to another place. He's like, okay, I have had enough of this video game. I'm going to another video game. So he went to another PlayStation. From one PlayStation, he goes to another PlayStation. Where is the PlayStation? It is in the courtyard. What is his console? His console is a wooden mortar and another pot of butter. And he starts distributing butter to the monkeys. Mother Yashoda realizes somebody kind of, maybe one of you kind of WhatsApps her, sends her a message. Mother Yashoda, you should take care of people and use things. So she realizes that my baby is not here. And the thing has been taken care of. So she goes searching for little Krishna. He is not where she had left him. So she looks around and she sees that puddle and the mess. And then she sees the footprints, the milky footprints of Krishna. So she follows the Milky Way. She follows the footprints. And she comes to this universe where Krishna is sitting on the wooden mortar, feeding butter to the monkeys. And Mother Yashoda is really concerned that, first of all, doesn't he understand the importance of, or the value of utilities? What kind of king is he going to be in the future? He's just throwing away butter. Now, it is not that in Braj, people would always conserve butter. They would also throw it around, but that would be in festivals. Srila Prabhupada says that they had so much dairy products, and with all the dairy products, they still took care of cows. They were cow lovers. So they did not need to go vegan because they still took care of cows nicely. That they could throw butter and yogurt at each other rather than throwing just plain water or colors at each other. They could do that with butter and yogurt and ghee.
Ghee is too expensive for us.
See, Krishna has fun, I told you. So anyways, ghee is also, as nourishing it is for us, it is also nourishing for the earth. The earth becomes very softened and nourished by ghee. So it is not just a wastage. Anyways, she wants to teach Krishna certain values. So Krishna is sitting on the wooden mortar. Mother Yashoda is creeping up behind him. The monkeys are right there in front of him. And the monkeys go, and Krishna is like, okay, there is some danger lurking behind me. But he does not want to immediately turn around. So he looks deep into the eyes of the monkeys. And within the eyes of the monkeys, he sees every single cornea of every single eye of the monkey reflect the image of Mother Yashoda creeping up behind him. He is like, oh my God, Mother Yashoda has taken multi-forms here. So that is when Krishna just looks behind, sees Mother Yashoda and jumps off the wooden mortar and starts running, and Mother Yashoda starts running after him. After some time, Mother Yashoda says, Krishna, I have already done my 10,000 steps. I've closed all of my rings today, my exercise rings. I need to teach you values. So can you just stop? And Krishna is like, well, if that is what you want to do, I'm an obedient child. I like to learn values. So Krishna stops and Mother Yashoda catches him. And then Mother Yashoda, she changes her strategy. She's like, now I've caught you. So now I'm going to punish you. And Krishna is like, never trust adults. they always want you to be on an improvement program. It's never enough. Whatever you do is never enough for the adults. Krishna looks at her, and because he feels a little bit betrayed that, hey, I stopped because he wanted to teach me values. He's like, you're going to punish me. So he has the fear in his eyes. Kritagasam anjanamashini sopanina. Sukdev Goswami says, feeling himself to be a culprit. Krita agasam, a culprit. Krishna starts rubbing his eyes with his little hands. Sopanina. Mother Yashoda, seeing her child cry, she realizes, what did I do? I do not want to instill fear in him. Unfortunately, I have already said install now. So the program is installing. So to stop the installation, I have to throw away this demeanor that I have. So Mother Yashoda immediately stops the installation of that program in Krishna's. What she feels is the installation of fear in Krishna's personality, that he is getting fearful of Mother Yashoda. But then, some of the files are already there in the temporary folders. So she has to make extra efforts. Krishna knows that she's not going to punish him. However, she needs to teach him values. So she was having a stick in her hand just to show Krishna that she meant business. She throws away that stick. Yashtim, the stick is thrown away. As soon as the stick is thrown away, Krishna says, okay, now I can my concerns or my stress is relieved. So immediately within his mind is thinking that, okay, now I can go and play with my friends and, we can have fun. Mother Yashoda says, no. I'm going to tie you up with this wooden mortar using a rope. So she tries to do that. And after a lot of effort, Krishna gets tied up. So that's a long story. Anyways, since he is bound by Mother Yashoda's love, the rope of love, and his partner in crime is the wooden mortar. So that is the Damodar pastime, the Damodar Leela. Now we sing the Damodar Ashtakam. It's nice. The rhythm is good. The melody is good. Isn't it? It's plus we have nice intent. That Kartik month singing Damodar Ashtakam, it is going to give us a lot of brownie points in devotional service. Isn't it? We'll get some extra benefits because somebody here told us, somebody with Tilak Kantimala told us that in Kartik, if you do even as the smallest of service, you get 10,000 times. Actually, it is 1,000. Considered to be 1,000 times more benefit. But people like to exaggerate whenever there are benefits, right? Up to 60% discount. You are wondering, where is that product that gives a 60% discount? No, it's up to. So you get benefits, so you come and do the Damodar Ashtakam. So Sanatan Goswami, he has written a commentary on the verses of the Damodar Ashtakam. So Namam Ishwaram Satchid Ananda Rupam. So Namam Ishwaram is the conjunction of two words, Namami Ishwara. Why Namami? Well, because you are addressing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so the mood of reverence is there. And by saying Namami, I offer respects. Namami. Naman. Karato aham. Karoti aham. That is Namami. I offer respects unto you. So, yeah, the Supreme Lord, so you do that. Another reason is, why do we always do this mudra, this pose, or bow down the head like that? What is the reason? That this is the first activity physically that we do whenever we are in the presence of greatness. Why is that we do that? What is Naman? Why do we the first thing that we do is Naman? What is the reason?
Surrender.
We are always so very fruitive, isn't it? Surrender. Because we want to show respect to that greatness. We want to show respect, isn't it? Whenever you see anything that is very visual, that is very great, that is very impressive, you become respectful towards it, right? So Namami is the mood of being respectful. So when we are singing Namami Shwaram, the mood of respect has to be there. How? Namami. Now, because the word is Namami, maybe that may not be there. Why? Because we do not understand the meaning. Hence, we read the English translation. I pay my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord. So at least when we are reading that, the mood of respect should be there. Maybe not. So Sanatana Goswami has started off the prayer, or Sanatana Goswami says that the Damodar Ashtakam begins with Namami so that we can be respectful towards greatness. Not just because he's a Supreme Lord, but the greatness of the Supreme Lord. Yes? What is his greatness? His greatness is in his existence. His existence as a person, as a personality, or his existence as a tattva, his just astitva, his presence is great. Let's say some XYZ guru comes here, some Guru Maharaj. So the presence of that guru invokes that, it impels one to respect the greatness that is there. Surrender is the next component. The first component is respect. Acknowledging that there is greatness here. Unless until we see greatness, surrender would be a little difficult. When you see greatness, when you see the huge the flow of the river, like River Ganga in Haridwar, you see her flow, then you are very respectful. Because if you're not respectful, you'll be swept away. Yeah. When you're driving up the mountains and if you're on the edge of the road, you're very respectful. Why? Because you know that if you don't, then it's a huge fall. So what does greatness do? Greatness allows you to be focused. Because when you pay respects, you have to be focused. Does it happen that most of us become focused only after the third or fourth verse? Or maybe we are more focused on offering the lamp rather than the prayer. Yes, hence the word Namami. Unto whom? Ishwar. Krishna. His existence. What is his existence about? The first existence is his Sarva Shaktiman. Sanatana Goswami says this is the first thing that should be there. His Sarva Shaktiman, which means he is giving us the energy to worship him. If that was not there, we would not be able to worship him. So every time we are able to offer a lamp to Krishna, Ishvara, Sarva Shaktiman Ishvara. Many times Shaktiman, greatness can be seen in terms of just danger. But now another aspect of greatness is also being understood. That is nourisher. Isn't it that? Isn't that there too? If somebody is providing our needs, don't we feel that that person is great? Let's say someone is, we are really in a very difficult situation, and somebody comes and says, don't worry, what is your need? Okay, I'll give you a loan, or I'll give you a donation. We'll never forget the greatness of that person, because they nourished us, they provided us nourishment. So Krishna is giving us nourishments for our devotional activities. Otherwise, how would we worship him? Yeah. So that is Ishwar. Then another idea or of Ishwara, another point about Krishna being Ishwar is his Jagatera Ekanatha. When we are worshipping Krishna, we should realize that other than him, we do not have anyone that can provide for us. He is the only maintainer. Not only for us, for everyone. So I do not need to worry about my family, my country, because just as he's providing for me, he can provide for everyone too. Yeah. Now, obviously, when children are around, you have to be a little aware of what they're doing. Many times people, as they're offering, they're like looking around, who else is offering? Krishna will maintain. Krishna cares for all of them. Akka, come. Amma, you also offer. Krishna is there. He'll maintain. What about you? You're here going on Namami Shwaram such. You also do that. So Jagatera Nath. And not just Jagatera Nath, Jagatera Ekanath. Jagat Ekanath. Yeah. And finally, Ishvara means also Krishna, although he is the universal caretaker, he is also my personal Lord. He is my own. Nija Prabhu, Sanatana Goswami says. So the feeling that Krishna is my own is also there when we chant Namami Ishvara. Now, if Sanatana Goswami has explained one word of this prayer in such detail, it could take us a lot of time to go through the entire prayer. And that is not our program. Our program is to just speak a little bit on Damodar pastime. Yeah. So when we offer this prayer, when we look through the explanations given by Sanatana Goswami, maybe it is more helpful to express our devotional attitude towards Krishna. So we'll stop here. Any questions? Any clarifications? Yes.
Where is it referred in Bhagavatam regarding this Damodar Leela?
Where is it referred in the Bhagavatam that?
About the Damodar Leela.
About the Damodar Leela?
Is it in?
You mean Damodar Leela as Krishna being tied up by Mother Yashoda? 10th canto. Oh yeah. Okay. Any other questions? None. Nice.
Tomorrow being Radha Kund appearance day.
Is it?
Yeah,
That's nice.
tomorrow, yes.
Okay.
Recently, His Holiness Ramapasana Maharaj gave us a Christ lecture on Radha Kund. He showed us the places nearby Radha Kund.
Yes.
So, the question is, I asked Maharaj whether we can take bath in Radha Kund.
Yes.
So, given the past time that has happened before, and how Prabhupada said no, and he said there is a reason for which Prabhupada said no, but you can take bath after taking permission from spiritual master.
Okay.
So, not everyone has access to spiritual master.
Okay.
So, what should one do?
The question is, should we take bath in Radha Kund? And you asked one of the spiritual masters in ISKCON, and they said that you can do that after seeking permission from your spiritual master. And the spiritual master is not accessible, so what should we do? I mean, the way the question has been put, I don't think so we have access to take bath. So what can be done? Is that answer helpful? So we want to hear something else. Is there another way? So a spiritual master is someone who gives you spiritual knowledge. So spiritual knowledge, wherever it comes from, is actually on behalf of the spiritual master. So the spiritual master can appear through many instructors. And there are also spiritual masters. I think you'll understand it better when I use the term Siksha Guru, because that term is much more easily understood. I have no idea why it is easily understood, but like everything else, like Costco, the word makes sense. I still don't know how. But whenever I say Costco, people are like, oh, Prabhuji, you know Costco. Then Kroger's, you know Kroger's. Right. So Siksha Guru, and everyone is like, Prabhuji knows what is Siksha Guru. So, all right. So Siksha Guru basically means wherever you get instructions from, that place, that object, that person is representing the spiritual master. So does that help? Yeah. How does it help?
Can I ask him permission from the Guru? Siksha?
See, I never said that. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
If we are chanting, so we think while chanting we are connected to God. But if, for example, somebody is not chanting, they are new. So what would be easiest way for them to get connected to?
So if somebody is not chanting, so what is the easiest way for them to get connected to God? Get connected. Do you think chanting is the easiest way to connect to God, or trying to get connected to God is the easiest way to get connected to God?
We are told while you are chanting, you are directly connected to God.
So that is one of the ways, no? Trying to get connected to God is the easiest way to be connected to God. So one avenue is by chanting, one can be connected to God. By hearing, one can be connected to God. By glorifying, one can be connected to God. By rendering menial services, one can be connected to God. So there are so many avenues. Navadha Bhakti. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevan Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam Iti Pungsar Pita Vishnu Bhaktis Chinna Lakshana. All right. So we've heard that, no? So I'm not going to explain what these terms are, Shravanam, Kirtanam. We know what it is. Everyone knows what it is, right?
If somebody is not willing to chant, we can just say hear lecture or hear kirtan. That is the best connection.
I'm not saying it is a best connection. I'm saying there are many avenues. If you think that because someone is not chanting, then that person has no hope. Not really. All right. Yesterday we were having this talk that sadhana is just a facility for us to engage 1.5 to 2 hours of our day in spiritual practices. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything to do. The spiritual, and someone whose full-time activity is sadhana, then they can do up to 8 hours a day. So if you do it 2 hours a day, it is 16 rounds, 8 hours a day. Could be 64 hours. So people who live in the temple, they can do 64 rounds if they want. People who don't live in the temple, they should do at least 16 rounds if they want. We were just having that discussion yesterday, that the idea of what is sadhana. So will chanting take us back home, back to God? Actually, not really. Remembering Krishna will take us back home, back to God. If we chant remembering Krishna, then that chanting is effective. Otherwise, the cassette recorder also chants. Or iPhone chants. You can get animals to chant too. Prabhupada says, you train a parrot to say, Radhe Krishna, and the cat comes and the parrot goes, "Ah, ah, ah." So at the moment of death, when the cat is pouncing, the parrot is going, "Quack, quack, quack." Okay. So remembrance of Krishna is what will purify us. Chanting allows us to take Krishna's name and remember it. Like if we say Ganga, it gives you an opportunity to remember Ganga. No? So every time you take bath, that is a tradition, grew up in India like that. Har Har Gange, taking bath. Not everyone chants the Saptanadi mantra, not everyone does that. So Har Har Gange. So we are taking at least on the mental platform, we think that we are taking bath in the waters of the Ganga. Although it is in our washroom, water flowing through the shower. Namami Gange. I worship Ganga. So it gives us an opportunity to remember Ganga. However, just saying Namami Ganga and not remembering Ganga is not as helpful. It just gives us an opportunity not to speak about anything that is detrimental. That is it. Yeah. So chanting has to be done with remembrance of Krishna.
If somebody is chanting Vishnu Sahasranam or Garindra Moksham without knowing the prayers, without knowing the meaning, just chanting the Sanskrit thing. People
know the meaning, otherwise why would they chant? They will not understand the meaning of every single word. Like we also chant the Damodar Ashtakam. Do we know the meaning of every word? So why people? We are the people. Isn't it? However, the reason they are chanting is because they kind of know what the pastime is about, what the prayer is about. They know why Gajendra chanted those prayers. They have an idea about it. Hence they chant. So that is why it is beneficial. They're remembering, no? They remember Gajendra being saved by the Lord. In that remembrance, they are chanting. Similarly, we remember Krishna being tied by Mother Yashoda. So in that remembrance, we sing the Damodara Ashtaka. Okay? First her, because
Like if we have an option like do chant, like just following up with the question that we answered. Say if somebody gives an opportunity to either you chant or go for a pilgrimage, which one should we choose?
Why would anyone give you the option?
No, because no, like a priority wise. Sometimes people say why you are roaming around, going for pilgrimage, planning everything. Why you don't sit at one place, use that time to do chanting. That will be more helpful and effective.
Okay.
So in that way.
So what has traveling to do with chanting? Chanting is to do with the tongue, right? And the ear. Does it have just chanting have to do anything with the feet? So while you're on pilgrimage, you can chant.
But then again, doesn't it take us to this argument that then better go and stay in pilgrimage only and sit there and chant, right?
Well, if you're not there in the at the pilgrim sites, then you have to go there, no, to be there. If you decide to stay there, then you don't have to go to them because you all go to the pilgrimage site because you're already there at that place. If you're not there, then you have to go there. So therefore I asked, why would anyone give you the option? It is we who see the option, right? Why would anyone else give us the option?
Then this is forcing me to think that then to know the deeper meaning of going to pilgrimage.
Why would you want to know the deeper meaning? Is there a deeper meaning to anything? It's just so simple. Pilgrimage is a place where we can be connected to the pastimes of the Lord, or we connected to certain process of purification. What are some of the pilgrimage places that you know of? Give me a couple of examples.
Puri, Vrindavan.
Puri, Vrindavan. So what is Puri about? Lord Jagannath appeared there. So that is why we go there. Lord Jagannath's appearance place. So that is all right.
But to connect to those pastimes.
If you want to, it is just like, why do I want to go to some place? Let's say again, Costco's. Why do I want to? There's some need there, right? So if I want to be at the place where Lord Jagannath appeared, that is Jagannath Puri. If I don't want to be there, that is my choice.
Because in India, like we have our parents and relatives, like they don't chant.
Okay.
But they believe in this pilgrimage and they would like, oh yeah, I visited this pilgrimage, I visited to this temple and all.
Okay.
So when we try to explain them, no, chanting also good, they say like, oh no, we did pilgrimage, no, we covered everything. So whatever we could do, we did in our life. So I was just trying to correlate to those things.
Yeah. So if somebody is saying that because we've been to on a pilgrimage, therefore now it is good, then we have to make them understand that going to the pilgrimage has helped us with whatever previous actions we have done. After coming back from the pilgrimage, if we are doing more activities, we may have to go on pilgrimage again. It is like, why did they go on a pilgrimage? There was some reason, right? Most probably the reason was to get some benefits. So there was no benefits. So let us use the example of somebody going to a hospital to be benefited by being treated. So once they are treated, they have to come back. Now, their activities, if it is going to make them sick again, they'll have to go to the hospital again, right? So once they are back from a pilgrimage, if the activities are again creating the demands that they need the benefit of a pilgrimage, then they have to go back to the pilgrimage.
So it's like bathing in the Ganges.
The reason they went there was for certain benefits. So if the need of getting those benefits comes up again, they'll have to go to the pilgrimage place again. That's logical, isn't it? So we have to just ask them, so are your activities now not creating those needs anymore? Yeah. If they, okay, so if it is creating the need, then they have a choice. Do you want to address those needs through chanting now, just being where you are? because you've already been to all the pilgrimage places that you want to be go to, or do you want to make the trip again? It's up to them. So we can again give them that option.
Because sometimes like chanting is very difficult for them.
It depends when we give them the option that do you want to go on a pilgrimage again to get those benefits, or the same can be achieved by chanting now. You see, so we can kind of take advantage of people wanting to be lazy. Maybe they'll take up chanting almost. You can take that chance. Yeah. All right. Yes.
Yes, no. So, we talk so much about the transformation. What exactly it means, like, I mean, I can talk myself. So what I have basic, basically like, each one will have the basic, like, some certain of characteristics, right? I still have those, and maybe like my habits, right, and all stuff. So I may give up, and I can feel that I kind of transform from that aspect. But what exactly, the transformation? Those are like giving up habits and like making small adjustments. It's not looks like it's not a big deal. But what is actual thing that is supposed to happen?
Okay. So when we speak of transformation, so can we at least is there anything specific that we are looking at? Like we could say 1, 2, 3 like that. Yeah. Transformation is already happening whether we like it or not. What is that? Every one of us, by the influence of time, is growing old, older, and older. Now, with that transformation, and there's no control over it, it is just we are having the experience of that, right? With such transformation, there are various challenges coming. The scriptures and these seers or thoughtful people, whom we call as saintly personalities, they did a lot of research on this. And their analysis is that this can be avoided if one can constantly remember the Supreme Lord. If we are not able to constantly remember the Supreme Lord, then this transformation is going to take us through many cycles. We are going to grow old, die, again take birth, grow old, die, again take birth, grow. So that is what they have observed, and they have passed it to us, this knowledge. Now, if we want to stop this cycle, the only way to stop this cycle is to constantly remember Krishna this lifetime. What would it take to remember Krishna? And when we get to that, that is a transformation. Is that helpful?
This one is it's understood, but not able to
How does it translate? Let's say, what does it take to remember an object? Anything that, from your own life. What is it that you remember a lot? The bills every month, taxes, family, things like that. So give me one example. Something that has to do with remembrance.
So
Work.
Yes.
So every single day, how does it it manifest as remembrance?
basically what is the thing that I supposed to work, and I think in a broader perspective, it's money. In the
So,
sense,
money is a stimulant, or it could be the catalyst, or
yeah. So basically, with that, so there will be so many things keep coming, how even in the current situation, we must.
So what is it that you remember that money gives you, money offers you? What is it? Comfort, security, something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can these be considered to be tangible things? Now, if you want to understand what is security, how do you understand security? It's a feeling.
Yeah.
isn't it? So there are certain things that are tangible and there are certain emotions that are felt. It has to be a combination of both. Yeah, we are rational beings, but everything cannot be broken down into, let's say, bits and pieces. Some things are just emotions, isn't it? That's why we are rational. So when it comes to remembering Krishna, there are bits and pieces. It is about tangible things to be done, to be observed, and emotions involved. The tangible things to be done and observed is based upon our lifestyle. So if you like to eat dosa and somebody likes to eat samosa, or let's say dosa and somebody else likes to eat, let's say, aloo paratha, right? So those are the tangible things. Those are things that are broken down into objects. Aloo paratha is there. This is a dosa here. The feeling of happiness or satisfaction, or after getting the taste, are you feeling more relaxed? Those are emotions. Emotions are similar. Whether the emotion that the person has while eating the aloo paratha is similar to the emotion that you feel having the dosa. So therefore, the emotion that I feel after I fall off to sleep is similar to the emotion that a dog feels after falling off to sleep a dog on the street, isn't it? But the tangibles that are there are different. Correct? The dog is on the street. I'm in my bed. After I fall off to sleep, we are both satisfied. We don't want to change our situation till we feel uncomfortable, right? Correct? So when I say there are certain things that are forced upon us, we have to transform. Those transformations bring challenges to us. Every day, as we pass another day in this world, we have to again work we have to again do work on what is it called as, like cyclical activities, just to have our maintenance. Correct? Over a period of time, the body and the mind slowly is withering, but the needs are not. So the challenge comes up. As a young adult, your challenge was the need was just about yourself. You get married, now the challenge is two people. Even if both are earning, the challenge is still two people. And then you have a family, children, it adds more people. So every single day, challenges are there. When you remember why you're doing, previously you were doing it just for yourself. Now yourself has expanded into family, like your spouse, children. That remembrance makes you want to work more and more and more. Why? Because it gives you a feeling of satisfaction, or it gives you a feeling of being responsible, whatever it is, whatever we accepted, that feeling. Just as much as, let's say, in other species of life, a parent must be feeling for their family. Correct? This has to be, if we want to free ourselves from this forced phenomena of transformation, if we don't want to be again getting old and again having these responsibilities of taking care of oneself in terms of my decaying existence and the decaying existence of my extended family, my family and extended family and society, so on and so forth, then our teachers, our spiritual masters, these thinkers, they have analyzed it and they have suggested that one should try and remember Krishna rather than just remembering our responsibilities in the limited sense. Like, okay, till 22 years of old, my responsibility was just myself. Then at age of 23, I got married. Now my responsibility is expanded into myself and my spouse. At 26 years of age, it has a response. Now, These transformations are being forced upon us, although we think we are involved. How is it being forced upon us? As soon as there is a spouse, we have no idea how it is going to expand. This is another individual over whose mind and senses we have no access. Over our mind and senses, we have access. So we are only the Kshetragni of this body. We are not the Kshetragni of other Kshetras. Okay, so that makes us very limited. And the limitation is because of us being in a constantly changing body. So remembrance of Krishna brings us, helps us come to a state where the need of the body may not be there. That is what they tell us. The scriptures tell us that the need of the body may not be there. Our existence will still be there. So how do we break it into tangibles now? How do we remember Krishna? Just as how do you remember work? You look at your family, you look at your responsibilities, and you remember, okay, what are my responsibilities? My bills. Therefore, I have to work. What are the bills doing? It pays for my clothes, it pays for my house, it pays for my vehicle, it pays for my food. So similarly, remembrance of Krishna. What is it? How do I remember Krishna? To remember Krishna, I need to be healthy. For that, I need to have good food. I need to have shelter. So now, what is a shelter for? The shelter is done in such a way. It is not just my responsibility towards my family. It is my responsibility towards Krishna. So the object of all our activities now becomes Krishna. And that is how we remember Krishna.
But in doing those things, I'm not losing. So yeah, we understand. So this is for Krishna. Maybe that's only for certain time is there.
No.
For a certain moment. I mean,
Why should it be there? Let me. How did you accept your existence expanding to your spouse? Did you have to really sit down and analyze it? Or then you saw that these are the needs that are arising and therefore you took it up. Isn't it? How did that happen? Was there a lot of analysis needed? So that is what happens. Situations bring forth to us opportunities to understand how our responsibilities can expand. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, the teachings help us understand how our connection to Krishna can expand to each and every moment. So when we see water, when we drink water, we think the taste of water is Krishna. When we have flowers, or when we see something that is very fragrant, we think that the fragrance is coming from Krishna. If you touch something very soft, we understand that the softness of that element is coming from Krishna. To understand that, we have to practice. Just as to understand how to do your work well, you have to practice day in and day out.
so if we could see every object as in terms of Krishna, so that is a kind of we can say that's a transformation.
Yeah. That is how there will be remembrance. So if you pick up flower, the first thought should be, should I offer it to Krishna rather than can I use it for myself, or give it to my daughter or son, or use it to decorate my flower vase? So as soon as I see the flower, it brings in remembrances of the objects that are connected to me. Now, if that can be done, if we can add Krishna to that and make Krishna exclusively the object of our remembrance, then we can stop the cycle of being subjugated to this body, the cycle of birth and death.
I got another question. So, I think in the course of discussion, you mentioned like if you see the hill and beautiful hill, and we just enjoy it. It's like it's so beautiful. Like it gives pleasure to your mind. So, and do we see that as a sense gratification? And similarly, even though we make food and prepare bhoga and offer to Krishna, and when we are having it, so it's so tasty. You offered it, but when you are actually having it, you forgot and you are like you are like gratifying your senses. So is like on and off is there, remembering of Krishna, but so do we need to have like every moment is
Our problem is that we have not really allowed ourselves to get used to things that are that give us satisfaction for a long period of time. Because of the present lifestyle we have, we constantly change from one thing to the other. Now, growing up, we did not have that option because we'd always get the food that our mother would cook. Therefore, growing up, we could immediately understand if we had that opportunity. Many of us may, even in today's times, we lose that opportunity because we always outsource food. Now, today, cooking is kind of outsourced every week. Previously, that was not there, and therefore it was very easy to relate to your mother's cooking. And when you would leave town, you would miss that. And when you come back, you'd be happy to again have food cooked by her, provided you're attached to it. And how did the attachment grow? Because of being in touch for a long period of time. Now, if we have not been in touch with mother's cooking for a long period of time, we are not going to feel that. Even if we eat what she cooks, let's say we have been away from the mother for 2 to 3 years, we lose the taste. Hence, we lost the remembrance. So unless and until we do activities over a long period of time in connection with the object that we want to be the object of remembrance, it's not possible to do it. Hence practice. Therefore sadhana. That is the word sadhana. Sadhana means constantly being in touch with the object that you desire to achieve, till the time you reach there. Is that all right? That is helpful now? Okay. Anything else? Should we stop? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Damodar Bhagwan ki jai.